Good evening and welcome to our brand new ETV News Studio. I'm Sally Burdett. It's 8 o'clock. You are very welcome. Live from Johannesburg, here are your top stories. President Cyril Ramaphosa has 90 days to appoint a new head of the National Prosecuting Authority. The Constitutional Court ruling today that Shaun Abrahams' appointment was unconstitutional. The Council for Educators warning of an increase in bogus teachers as the Hawks investigates a fake qualifications scam. And uncertainty in Zimbabwe tonight, despite a call for unity from President-elect Emmerson Mnangagwa. Plenty coming up in the next half hour. Of course, we have sport and business news. And it's a very good evening to Moteo Garipa and Jeffrey Stevens. Hi, gents.
Good evening, Sally. Still to come, plenty to talk about. It being a Monday, the Proteas in Sri Lanka, we look at that. And then also the Springboks and their readiness for the Rugby Championship.
Well, in money news, President Recep Erdogan calls the US's sanctions an economic attack on Turkey's economy. We tell you what that means for the rand.
Thank you. We start our bulletin here. And the question tonight, who is going to lead the National Prosecuting Authority out of its latest leadership impasse so that it becomes the effective crime-fighting body that South Africa really needs? Today, the Constitutional Court ruled the appointment of Shaun Abrahams as NPA head was invalid and unconstitutional. It also ruled that former President Jacob Zuma abused his powers by pushing for the 2015 exit of the previous head, Mxolisi. Erin Bates looks back at a crucial day for the NPA.
As president, Jacob Zuma was determined to oust then NDPP Mxolisi, first in the form of an inquiry, and then with cold hard cash.
Former President Zuma was bent on getting rid of Mr. Nxasana by whatever means he could muster.
Nxasana left with a golden handshake of over 17 million rand. The Constitutional Court says that deal is invalid. So too, Abrahams' appointment.
Former President Zuma appointed Advocate Abrahams following his unlawful removal of Mr. Nxasana. That removal was an abuse of power. Advocate Abrahams is a beneficiary of that abuse of power.
Nxasana says he's vindicated, but he has to repay over 10 million rand.
I just hope that when the justices came to their conclusion, they stepped into my shoes as well, because for the whole 3 years, my life has been hanging.
Stabilizing the NPA has been high on President Cyril Ramaphosa's agenda since taking office. In a statement, Ramaphosa's own party urges him to act sooner rather than later. Opposition parties are pleased. Abrahams has refused comment and referred questions to the NPA's spokesperson.
He is massively disappointed. Remember, his fitness to hold office was not an issue. He was not party to the negotiated settlement. However, he respects the decision of the Apex Court.
Ramaphosa now has 90 days to appoint a new National Director of Public Prosecutions. Erin Bates, Johannesburg.
Well, for more on the story, we're joined by our reporter Aldrin Sampier, who was in court today. Good evening, Aldrin. Thank you so much for joining us in our lovely new studio.
Beautiful studio, by the way.
What does this mean for the NPA? Is it a fresh start or yet another disastrous chapter in an ongoing saga?
It's an opportunity for the NPA to restore its integrity as well as reaffirm its independence. But President Cyril Ramaphosa will play an integral part in that, in ensuring that the NPA does what is expected of it, especially when it comes to the criminal justice system. And hopefully this could be that opportunity that has been granted to the NPA.
He has 90 days, 3 months. He issued a release saying that he's studying it, he's looking at, will communicate in due course. Is there someone waiting in the wings who hasn't been tainted? I mean, the name Vusi Pikoli is out there already.
Yes, Vusi Pikoli's name has been bandied about. You have, I even saw that Glynis Breitenbach's name was there. And eNCA's Annika Larsen speaking to Glynis Breitenbach earlier on today and asked her about her returning back to the NPA. And she said, I refuse to answer that question. So maybe there's something there. But it seems that Vusi Pikoli seems to be the front runner. There's also a report by Business Day that says Terence Nombembe, the former Auditor General, could be one of those people, as well as Johan de Kock. So we'll have to wait and see who the president goes for. But the pool is wide. If the president looks into the various other bar councils, how many people are there?
And of course, wrapped up in all of this history, the saga of the NPA, is our former president, Jacob Zuma. What does today's ruling mean for him?
Well, essentially just means that the Constitutional Court has yet again found that the president has abused his power. And I just want to read a quick sentence here from this ruling where it says, if you subvert the criminal justice system, you subvert the rule of law and the constitutional democracy itself. But unfortunately, although the president may have done that, or the former president may have done that, there's nothing that could be done against him in terms of holding him accountable, because he may argue that he was doing that in his capacity as president of the country and the administrative powers given to him by the Constitution.
Thank you so much. Aldrin Sampier giving us the very latest and some idea of what will be happening in the next 3 months or so. Moving on now, the South African Council for Educators is concerned that fake teaching certificates are on the rise, and they're warning of serious consequences for those who try to cheat the system. Now, a woman has been sentenced to 12 months in jail, suspended for 3 years, for presenting a fake teacher certificate to the council. As Lindele Masikane reports, the council says this conviction is only the beginning of its plans to tackle fake teachers.
This woman tried to fraudulently become a teacher, but she was caught red-handed. Instead of registering with the Council for Educators, she was arrested at their offices. In 2016, a report by the South African Council for Educators found that about 20 teachers were in our country's classrooms despite not having valid qualifications. And the number of people trying to do the same continues to increase. 3 cases are under investigation in Mpumalanga, 1 in Limpopo, and 3 more in Gauteng. The council plans to report another 18 cases to the Hawks this week.
If it was just one person bringing fraudulent qualifications, it's one too many. The worrying factor is that these people, if they get a chance of being registered, they're going to get employment as teachers, and they're going to destroy the future of our country.
These fake teachers often present fraudulently acquired qualifications accredited to UNISA, the universities of Zululand, the Northwest, and the Free State. It's also been revealed that some universities are selling qualifications. The council says it's tightened up its own vetting process, with teachers now required to renew their certificates regularly. It's also blacklisting those trying to enter the system fraudulently to ensure they can never teach in a classroom, even if they get the qualification legally. Fraudsters armed with fake qualifications are being warned by the South African Council for Educators that it's coming for them and they'll soon have nowhere to hide. Slinda Lomasigan, Pretoria.
Lobby group People Against Petrol and Paraffin price increases is threatening a boycott of the 2019 general elections if government doesn't reduce fuel prices. The group led a march in Durban today to demand government reduce petrol to under 10 rand a litre.
As all poor people are affected, so am I.
The increase of petrol, it affects every citizen of South Africa. Whether you are working or not working, whether you have got a car or you don't have a car, it affects you one way or the other.
We voted for them. We took them to the parliament. Even those other oppositions, they are not talking, they are not tabling these issues for us as community. So if they are not doing that, we are going to see each other on the 2019, where we will be lobbying the people not to go to the ballot box.
Some good news now. The 2-week Gautrain strike is officially over. After marathon weekend talks, the United National Transport Union agreed to an 8% increase. Initially, they asked for 10%. Under the deal, the Gautrain minimum wage will be increased and an incentive bonus has been introduced. The Gautrain service may take a few days before it is fully operational again. Still ahead on eNews, it's Heroes Day in Zimbabwe, but a great deal of uncertainty in that country. Yesterday, the swearing in of the president-elect was put on hold. And in the world of entertainment, fears for the Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin, tonight. She is reportedly gravely ill. We'll also have money news. Mateo, what you got?
Well, the rand down more than 2% against the US dollar at the back of those dropping in emerging market currencies. We'll have those stories after the break.
This is eNews at 8, coming to you from a brand new studio, and I'd like to introduce a new feature on our evening news. Joining me now to talk money in the markets is Moteo Kharipe. Hi there, Moteo.
Hi, Sally.
Let's start with the rand, and actually let's start with Turkey, because our fortunes are tied to other emerging markets, and specifically Turkey. The lira's taken a hammering. Do we blame Turkey, or do we actually just blame Trump?
We blame both.
Okay.
So here's what's happening. Turkey has got a US pastor that they've arrested for the attempted coups that happened in 2016, and the US would like a release of that pastor. So they haven't agreed on terms in terms of that. And in terms of Turkey trying to get US jets, but using Russian missiles, the US feels that they would be, compromised in terms of their defense policies. Since the two didn't agree, Trump then decides that he's going to put economic sanctions, doubling steel and aluminium for Turkey to make sure that that economy is under pressure, to try and push President Erdogan into a decision of releasing the US pastor, as well as some of the NATO defense decisions that he'd like him to make. So that's seen the Turkish lira go down more than 40% against the US dollar. And because we're in the same basket of currencies with that emerging economy, the rand has also gone down as well.
And let's listen to what an analyst said a little bit earlier about what's going on in Turkey.
I very much doubt that what's been announced at the moment in Turkey is going to be sufficient to stabilise certainly the Turkish lira, which has been the focal point for most investors. I think the basic problem, as I keep coming back to, is that under Erdogan, the economic institutions have been largely hollowed out.
That doesn't sound like a problem that's easily solved. No. What does it mean for our rand? It was a terrible week last week. This morning we woke up to awful news, but things are a little better tonight?
Things were a little better in early afternoon
Oh,
trade, but because there's a back and forth between the two presidents, we've seen the currency still under pressure. It was at 14.40 against the US dollar last I checked, and we're going to see the same pattern as the trade wars continue. But the all-share today weakening at the back of rather strengthening marginally at the back of that, and industrials also in good territory. The all-share also pushed up by Naspers as well, one of the biggest stocks on the JSE. But it was a bad day for financials, because as the rand goes down, then the banks also goes down because of that exchange rate. And in commodities, it was a negative trade for them. It was almost a bloodbath of sorts, with gold down. We are missing some negative signs there, but gold down more than 1% at $1,193 an ounce, with platinum down more than 2%, and Brent crude still low, which is good for that petrol price, I must add, because if it was higher, then the petrol price would have gone up much sooner. So it being low at $71 a barrel is quite great for us.
Thank you so much, Moteo Kharipe. Well, let's move now to Zimbabwe. And yesterday, President-elect Emmerson Mnangagwa was meant to be sworn in, but his inauguration didn't go ahead because the MDC Alliance went to court to challenge the election results. So problems there. Mnangagwa is now calling for unity in Zimbabwe. And this is a clip from him speaking at the official Heroes Day commemoration in Harare a little earlier.
Let us unite as Zimbabweans, revive our economy, and rebuild our great nation, the land of dreams, the land of immense possibilities. We should never be deterred by temporal setbacks or regrettable events which we encounter in our course to build an open, free and democratic and prosperous Zimbabwe, the Zimbabwe we want.
Well, in his statement for Heroes Day, MDC Alliance leader Nelson Chamisa said citizens have a patriotic duty to ensure that heroes and heroines don't die in vain, and that Zimbabwe needs truth, healing and reconciliation. In other international news, dozens of children killed in a Saudi-led coalition airstrike have been laid to rest in war-torn Yemen today. The children were travelling in a school bus on Thursday when they came under attack. At least 40 children were killed and scores more have been injured in Yemen. Leaders of North and South Korea are to meet next month for a third summit. South Korea's President Moon Jae-in and North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un will meet in Pyongyang. The meeting is seen as yet another step towards boosting cooperation between the old rivals. And some worrying news from the music industry. Veteran soul singer Aretha Franklin is reportedly seriously ill. Now, this is according to a source close to the star. The 76-year-old has cancelled planned performances earlier this year due to poor health. Well, the Queen of Soul is best known for hit songs Respect and I Say a Little Prayer, and I'm sure many of her fans will be saying a little prayer for her this evening. Let's recap your headlines this evening now. President Cyril Ramaphosa has 90 days to appoint a new head of the National Prosecuting Authority. The Constitutional Court ruling today that Sean Abrams' appointment was unconstitutional. The Council for Educators is warning of an increase in bogus teachers as the Hawks investigates a fake qualifications scam. Stay with us on eNews. Still ahead, we have your weather, and up next, your sports chat with Jeffrey Stevens. Hey, Jeff.
Yes, we look at the Proteas and their standing captain and how he's fared in his 2 matches so far. Those and others on the way.
And finally, to pee or not to pee in public, that is, that's the question dividing residents in Paris. Now, locals are rather upset by a set of exposed urinals that have been installed in some parts of the French capital. The bright red Yuri Trottoir is essentially a box with an opening in the front and a floral display on the top. The device has no stall around it. It contains straw, which is later used for compost for parks and public gardens. Its designers say it's an eco-friendly alternative to urinating in public. However, some residents say the model is inappropriate, unattractive and could become a target for exhibitionists. Authorities have rolled out 4 of the stand-up loos in spots where public peeing has been a problem, and more are planned. Clearly, though, this is just for men. Before we go, a reminder of our top stories this evening. President Cyril Ramaphosa has 90 days to appoint a new head of the National Prosecuting Authority. The Constitutional Court ruling today that Sean Abrams' appointment was unconstitutional.